Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this one we are covering news. It looks like Washington Post picked this one up, and it is that Coca-Cola and State Farm have dropped their Overwatch League sponsorships. This is important because we already knew that, shoot, who was it? T-Mobile had dropped both their Overwatch League sponsorship, and as a result, I think they sponsored Plat Chat as well, which is something that some of the casters do on the side as a YouTube channel, and they got caught in that and lost their sponsorship as well, even though they're not responsible for any of the Blizzard stuff. But the point is, big recognized companies are dropping their sponsorships, and those are the ones that pay the bills. Those are the sponsorships that make sort of things work, that are what sells the idea in any sporting event of, hey, this is how we're going to make profit. It's why you can pay players. You're not initially paying the players with sponsorship money, but you're paying with the belief that you'll be able to recoup it through ad money. That's why Twitch or YouTube buys the rights to advertise something, because the belief is that the ad money will be good enough. Now, YouTube or Twitch would run their own ads that are different than the ads that Overwatch League runs itself on the channel, but this is bad news for a league that already wasn't trending in the right direction and really hasn't been since Season 1. Season 1 was okay, don't get me wrong, but Season 2 went poorly with GOATs, with how long it stayed around. It did not do the growth that was intended, didn't get quite as much localization as was expected to happen, which was sort of the dream, the thing that was supposed to make this league different than previous esport leagues. It's going to be about the hometown. It's going to be about locating the teams in places like DC, like San Francisco, like LA, like Shanghai, like making it about, oh, these teams have locations that people will go to. That didn't happen the way it had after kind of a rough patch in Season 2. Then COVID things happened. Now there just isn't enough excitement around either the game or the league. Now we obviously see Blizzard, mostly Activision Blizzard, but Blizzard mostly entering a bit of a spiral, and this could become a bit of a death spiral in some ways. So before I get too into it, let's read the article. For those of you who don't know how these ones work when I cover the news like this, I will pay some attention to chat, but I'll mostly do that after we've covered what we want to in the article. As you can see, it's not a terribly long article here. I'll then react based on what chat has to say. We'll do some back and forth. If you want to jump in at any time and you're like, no, this has to get in here right now, the way to do that is with a super chat. And then if there were comments, which it looks like there aren't here, we'd react to those after we did the chat stuff. But we'll have some back and forth. I'm going to get through this at first, though. I'm not ignoring you, chat. So here we go. Our line is: amid harassment lawsuits, Coca-Cola, State Farm pull back from Blizzard's Overwatch League. Okay, and again, T-Mobile's already done so. Uh, then we've got Coca-Cola and State Farm are reassessing partnerships with Activision Overwatch League, according to statements provided by both companies. Reassessing means they had clauses in their contracts, which most advertiser clauses do, of, hey, if you guys get caught for bad behavior, if you're too negative press, we can get out, and it costs us very little to nothing to get out. It's fairly standard stuff these days. There's a bigger cultural discussion of whether it should be, whether companies should have to ride out contracts with the good and the bad, where it's like, hey, we want to be associated with you when you're good, but should they have to wait until it would be renewal time before they're just able to out when, just able to pull out when they say something they don't like, etc. This is a little more extreme than saying something they don't like, and it's certainly been a bit of an issue. This is probably on the more extreme side. So perhaps this type of thing should be allowed. I'd certainly be interested in what people in chat have to think about whether companies should be able to pull out of sponsorships ever before their renewal in these types of situations, what the boundaries for that should be, because I know that is a cultural hot button topic. So, the news comes 2 weeks after the state of California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing sued the video game giant over allegations of widespread harassment and discrimination against female employees at the company. Activision Blizzard runs the Overwatch League and the Call of Duty League, two esports ventures which organize competitions around those respective first-person shooter titles. Sometimes Overwatch is a first-person shooter. Coca-Cola and State Farm are two of 7 sponsors currently listed on the Overwatch League website. And again, T-Mobile was another. That's 3 of the 4 real major ones there, and this is a big name. Brand deals with big companies bleed into all parts of the league's matchday production. They are sponsored player rankings powered by IBM, well-placed red Coca-Cola cups next to the commentators, and quick-rolling advertisements that run between the action and a match. The partnerships are a key way for the league and Activision Blizzard to bring in revenue alongside broadcasting rights and franchise fees. In two statements provided to the Post Thursday, and that is today, a spokesperson for State Farm said the insurance provider is reevaluating our limited marketing relationship with the Overwatch League. So they're already distancing themselves. It's our limited marketing. Like, it's not a big deal. And the company has requested that no advertisements run during the match this weekend. So it is actually possible that they haven't left in the terms of they went, oh, we don't have a good out clause or it would cost us more money than we like to get out. So it is possible that they're doing a, okay, just don't run stuff for a while thing here, or they're saying we're not leaving the contract yet while our lawyers look through here and see how we're going to get out type thing, but in the meantime, don't run anything. It's possible that that's what's going on with State Farm here based on this language. I suspect there's an out, though. There's almost always an out for this type of thing when you're dealing with these big sorts of advertisement deals. State Farm first became a sponsor of the Overwatch League in 2019. Yep, they've been around for a little bit on the advertising thing. Okay. A spokesperson for Coca-Cola said Wednesday that the company is aware of the allegations surrounding Activision Blizzard and they've been closely monitoring the situation. That's just PR speak. That means absolutely nothing. We got a little bit more out of State Farm's statement, but we're definitely inferring we don't know. We are working with our partners at Blizzard as we take a step back for a moment to revisit future plans and the programs. Okay, so we're definitely not going to renew, is what I just heard there. I mean, they might, but it might be in quite a bit in the future type thing. After things have settled down. The spokesperson for Coca-Cola declined to comment on whether Coca-Cola would continue to sponsor the league. The next Overwatch League match is scheduled for Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Both Coca-Cola and State Farm ran advertisements in Overwatch League matches early this week. Oh, do we have a misleading title? So Coca-Cola said we are working at Blizzard as we take a step back for a moment. Does that actually mean they're saying that they're not going to run ads? Because it is not above Washington Post, it is not above any of the major newspapers, news media organizations at this point to run really poor titles for what is actually being done. They're as bad or worse than YouTubers. So is Coca-Cola actually not running ads? We see that State Farm is requested that no advertisements get run. Did we actually see any language that said, sorry, this is important. Aware of the allegations, closely monitoring the situation, working as we take a step back for a moment to revisit future plans and programs. That doesn't quite say that they've pulled their advertisements, even in the short term. Spokesperson at Coca-Cola declined to comment on whether Coca-Cola would continue to sponsor the Overwatch League. The next match is scheduled for Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Both Coca-Cola and State Farm ran advertisements and matches earlier this week, so after it had happened, but that doesn't mean that things had filtered through. Like, what's happening in Overwatch League with how much sponsorship Coca-Cola and State Farm do of things in general, this isn't necessarily the first thing they'd have gotten to. It would have had to bubble up for their people to notice it, I'd say. So it's not wild that things were running afterwards. It's also possible that it was finally called out. They were just letting it go, and then people got to them. Maybe they got a letter. Unlikely, more likely, Twitter started making a big deal out of it. We'll say. Okay. Sheldon Krieger comes in with a $5 super chat saying Pepsi and Mountain Dew better than Coke anyways. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's fair. I'd say Dr. Pepper's probably my favorite of those these days, but Mountain Dew is pretty good. And when I say these days, I don't really drink soda, but, whatever. If I had to pick. Thank you once again, Sheldon Krieger, for the $5 super chat. Okay. The Overwatch League and Activision did not respond to requests for comment. The lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, one of the world's biggest video game companies, alleges multiple instances of gender-based discrimination, inequality, and harassment. Last week, Activision Blizzard employees staged a walkout outside of headquarters of Blizzard Entertainment, known for its massively popular titles like World of Warcraft and Overwatch. Okay. On Tuesday, J. Allen Barak stepped down from his post as president of Blizzard Entertainment. Remember, still reported at the time to the CEO of Activision, which oversees Blizzard. So this is not the actual leader of the company, though this was in theory the head of Blizzard. That same day, Jesse Messick, a human resource executive at the company, resigned. Absolutely. I mean, human resources' job is to protect the company, and absolutely failed at that. Like, absolutely failed at protecting the company. You can decide whether that's because they allowed this culture to exist there or because they allowed this lawsuit to happen. But either way, like, that is absolutely they've failed at their job. The company would see their job as your job was to make sure these lawsuits don't happen, to make sure you've organized our company in a way that it doesn't. And one of the ways to do that is potentially, most people would say, to make sure that the company isn't actually doing bad things like this that could get them sued. So that's no surprise at all there. The company, which is a subsidiary of Activision Blizzard, will now be co-led by Jen O'Neill and Mike Ybarra, both of whom joined the company in the past 2 years. I think, yeah, it was just a couple years for both of them. I want to say one came from like Xbox or Xbox Live Services or something like that. I don't remember where the other one came from. Um, but co-leaders aren't a real thing. Co-leaders, like, that's not real. Um, that means any real decision making power is probably going to go back up to the CEO if you're looking at co-leaders like that. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe one of them will step up and really end up in the leadership position there. We'll see. Branding for T-Mobile, another company that once partnered with the Overwatch League and Call of Duty, vanished from broadcast in wake of the lawsuit. Yeah, they were much faster to pull. Last weekend, New York Subliners, one of 12 Call of Duty League teams, covered the T-Mobile logo on their jersey with duct tape. Company is no longer listed as a partner on either website. Right, they pulled out from the teams that they were sponsoring too. Plat Chat, a talk show that covers the Overwatch League. Pink coffee mugs sporting presented by T-Mobile also disappeared. The podcast has a rotating cast of commentators, some of whom work full-time for the Overwatch League. The one host told the Post the podcast is completely separate from Activision Blizzard. Well, it is completely separate. I mean, those guys are contractors. They're not actually Blizzard employees, even when they are doing the commentating. We know enough about how those contracts work. The host declined it, but, they were able to use their connections to potentially secure that sponsorship, and that sponsorship has gone from Al, and of course T-Mobile doesn't want to be anywhere near Overwatch, so they don't want to be in a commentating thing covering it either. That's not surprising. Those declined to answer questions earlier this week because they said the show is still in active talks with T-Mobile. They're trying to get it back, and it's possible that they will, I suppose. But I doubt it. T-Mobile did not respond to multiple requests for comment. The Post has reached out to the remaining 5 Overwatch League sponsors, Xfinity, IBM, Cheez-It, Pringles, and TeamSpeak, and other league-wide sponsors in Call of Duty who did not respond to press time. Okay. Xfinity, IBM, Cheez-It, Pringles, and TeamSpeak. I actually wonder about each of those. I have no idea how their team would react. In the past, in the past, they haven't really been the type of company to care about bad press, but they've cleaned up their image quite a bit. Interesting. Okay, so I'll get to comments in a second. I think this picture is a little misleading potentially, as well as this title, if we don't really know what Coca-Cola did here. I'm going to jump over to a Reddit post because there was a Reddit post, and the Washington Post is active in this Reddit post. Oh, let me go dark mode for you guys. I know there's this just because I want to see if there's more info, because we didn't get any more info in the comments. There were no comments on this. So let's go here and let's see. No one's commented on Coke whatsoever. Let's do a quick refresh here. Sorry guys, I just want more details if it's here. We could ask him. We could ask the author, because the author is posted in here. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe one of you want to do that. I don't know, but I don't actually see anything in here covering Coke, Cola. Yeah. So they haven't actually answered that cleanly to me. This is like, maybe this is true, but maybe this is a misleading headline. I really don't know. This is basically the only two they were able to get in touch with were State Farm and Coca-Cola. And we don't actually know what Coca-Cola did. Totally possible that Coca-Cola did pull out, will pull out, but this article doesn't actually say that. Um, yeah. Okay. So, with that in mind, if I look at this, if Coca Cola really did pull back, I'd expect them to at least stay out for a season or two. I'd expect State Farm to stay out for a season or two. If these guys pulled out as a result of a Twitter mob, it is entirely possible that the Twitter mob will then move on to the rest of their list of 7 sponsors, or whichever of those 7 sponsors seem vulnerable to um, public pressure. Some companies are less so than others. Some of it depends on a lot of things, one of which being privately held or not, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I have to say, this could very well be the beginning. Like, if this is real, that Coca-Cola, State Farm, and T-Mobile are out, that probably is the death spiral. And the reason I say that is, like, Overwatch 2, if Overwatch 2 came out next year, early next year maybe, but I don't think we're on schedule for that right now, this lawsuit probably won't even be resolved quickly enough. Like, if they got a positive resolution to this lawsuit of like, no, it's nothing, it's gone, it was overhyped, etc., they could potentially lure some sponsors back pretty quickly. If they got a negative result, these companies at least are going to know that there's potentially a negative result in the future to the lawsuit, so they're not going to want to come back between now and whenever the lawsuit gets resolved, because they'll be in for sort of another negative hit when the lawsuit gets resolved, and when that hits press headlines and, oh, you're associated with the company that is doing this. So they're going to want to stay clear for a while, and litigation will probably take a while. Like, this is not good for the league. The league is already not healthy enough, and the league has real costs. The league has real costs in what it costs for players to do stuff. Like, they have player contracts, they have production costs. They, I wonder where they are in the renewal with YouTube. I wonder how many years YouTube bought when YouTube went, hey, we're going to do it this time instead of Twitch, because Twitch paid quite a bit for those first 2 years of Overwatch League broadcast rights. I wonder where YouTube is in theirs. Interesting. This doesn't necessarily mean the end for the league, and my understanding is the Call of Duty League, I'm not close to it, but is in a little better shape, or has been in a bit better shape, has been in meaningfully better shape than the Overwatch League one, but this could be rough. And there's not going to be any real way for the teams to go sell their league spots, because those are transferable, though the transfer has to be approved, because no one's going to want to get near this league. So this might be the time to buy a discount Overwatch League team slot, but that looks rough. You have to believe that they're going to come out the other side, and I wouldn't be too surprised. I'm not saying that the league's going to be gone tomorrow or that this is the last season, guys, but like, you could see, okay, we're downscaling minimum pay in the league, we're decreasing production quality, we're doing less games in the season again. You could see them downscale it more, and you could see it literally being a spiral where, I think 2 years from now, it could be rough to believe that this league is going to exist. I might be overreacting, and again, we don't actually know what the stance is with Coca-Cola, and that's a big deal. If Coca-Cola holds steady, maybe others will hold steady, and this article, in my mind, is not clear on that. Okay. With that out of the way, I don't think I've said anything wild hot takes here, but let's see what chat has to say, because I am quite curious what you guys have to say here. So Val says more cancel culture. Yeah, sort of. More than sort of. I mean, is this one cancel culture? Depends on how the definition gets used. Again, it's one of those things where people have different definitions for what those words mean. That's one of the issues with political discourse these days, where words have moving definitions. Uh, yeah, words have moving definitions, and sometimes the fight is over the definitions, but a fight over definitions is never going to stick in social media, where attention spans are so short, where character limits exist, that sort of thing. So tough call. Okay, hey Semitic. YS says, wow, these companies all have offices, headquarters in New York City. They should just pull out of New York City because cancel culture after the Cuomo stuff / sarcasm. Okay, okay. Hey Zax, hey JP. I mean, as you describe Overwatch League being in a death spiral for your position as an Overwatch coach, how does that make you feel? I don't love it, but I'm not necessarily planning to be attached to Overwatch forever, guys. Like, there's a reason that I cover other stuff. There's a reason I cover news stuff like this. There's a reason I cover video game news sometimes. There's a reason I cover general life advice type stuff. There's a reason I sometimes cover other video games briefly. I am aware that Overwatch is not a safe long-term prospect, and yes, while I am somewhat attached to the Overwatch, the majority of the content I create is attached to the Overwatch intellectual property right now, and Blizzard messing up badly with the Overwatch property isn't good for me. I will pivot at some point either into something more general or into a couple other places. Maybe this will become at some point in the future a competitive gaming channel where we talk about competitive gaming in general. Maybe we'll pivot into coaching one or two different games. Maybe we'll more generally become a video game news channel. Maybe we'll move more into a like life tips for gamers type thing. Like, there's different places that we can go. I'm not too worried about that. Maybe we'll do video game reviews. Like, I'm not too worried about me because I've always known that this isn't a safe IP to be attached to. There's a reason I stopped coaching with the intent of getting into the Overwatch League a couple years back and went, this doesn't make sense. And I still went back to Overwatch from a content creation standpoint, but I'm not foolish enough to believe that it's a safe place. So I will move into other things. And if you guys have things that you're really interested, like you really like it when I do news stuff, or you really like it when I cover other games, or you really would like me to go cover, I don't know, competitive Pokemon or Valorant or whatever the case may be, let me know that. Tweet at me on Twitter, put something in my Discord, comment on the videos. You guys let me know. The Blah Foundation has withdrawn its support for Owl. And how much support was the Blah Foundation providing to Owl? Was that like 4 hours of watch time total across all the years? Okay. James Daly says maybe they can get some new shady sponsors like cigarette companies and Uber. They did loosen the restrictions at some point. I think they loosened the restrictions to allow maybe for gambling at some point. I don't want to misspeak there. I could be wrong. I did remember seeing that they'd loosened some of their advertiser restrictions because back when I was thinking about purchasing a contender's spot so that I could have full control of a team because I could see that I could just run it better than teams were being run in tier two. And I was coaching a team at the time, by the way. So that was not some, oh, I need to buy a spot to get in thing. Like, I could have coached. Most teams would have been happy to have me as a coach, but it was more of I can run these teams better than they're being run, and I can also run them in a way that makes more money than they're being run. But I saw the sponsorship restrictions, and they were just atrocious, and I went, I'm not interested. But they have loosened them a bit since then, and I believe they loosened them in Overwatch League as well. I think in general, some of the casting has been quite cringe, but this may have to do with the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. Oh, it for sure does. Sitting around waiting for Overwatch 2 intensifies. Right, but Overwatch 2 has to be a home run now. It has to. Owl was always going to be difficult to make successful. Truth be told, there's difficulty to it as a spectator game. Yes and no. Like, yes, there's difficulty to it as a spectator game, but it was moving exactly how they wanted it. It was more successful than the people who bought in expected it to be in season one. So they messed up. Like, it was on the right trajectory, and then they messed up. And if we'd actually, by late season 2 or by season 3, actually had meaningful homesteads, not like twice a year, let's go visit and maybe host, like, we'll have like 4 homesteads total, not four for any team, but like we'll have four places where multiple teams will pretend to be the home team, which was what we got. If we'd actually had homesteads by like season 3, where no, the teams were the league was actually going around and playing in places, you might have been able to work up real hype. We'll never know at this point. Collegiate still may be able to pull that off. Collegiate still may be able to go, hey, you go to your school's team, or you go to the school for your area's team because it's interesting, because it's an event, because you get to go out and do something outside, like with other people, that's video game related. Even if you don't really play a ton of Overwatch anymore, you know how Overwatch works enough. You played some of it, and it could have been even after you were playing something that you wanted to go do with friends, the same way you might go to a baseball game. That might have had a route for success. At this point, we're not going to know because there were too many missteps. Because they banned people from saying it. They banned people from saying what? Discord? I don't know. Is Discord okay? Whatever. Well, Overwatch and Owl is pretty much dead to you. I am burnt out after playing 5 years with so little content added to the game. I didn't touch Overwatch 2 weeks, and I'm uninstalling with D2R probably. You could, like, that's fine, Zax, but there's been other games that, I mean, there have been games in the past that people have been happy to play for years that had no changes, that had absolutely no changes. They just stayed as they were. There were no update patches, there was no new content released, and they were fine. I think there's something to be said for it has content, but the content isn't good, or it's kept in balanced states that people don't particularly like. I think that has more to do with it than just a lack of content. I think a lack of content matters, and I think in the modern world, it's expected that you to produce content much more so than it used to be, and Blizzard was slow to get on that train, slow to understand that. It doesn't really fit their model. They're still in a flavor of the month model, which they were one of the earlier adopters for, but I don't think it's just like intrinsically true that a lack of content is going to cause people to en masse burnout from a game. With Diablo 2 Resurrected coming out soon, that will not seriously steal people away. People might not try Diablo 2 when they were planning to before, maybe because of what's going on with Blizzard regarding regarding the legal trouble that they're in, but Diablo 2 was never going to be like, even though people have fond memories of Diablo 2, Diablo 2 was never going to be oh yes, they're making tons of money off of this, everyone is buying it and playing it, and engagement is going to stay super high. Don't get me wrong, Diablo 2 has stayed somewhat relevant on terms of player base on like Twitch, I suppose, viewership for a while, more so than you'd expect it to be, but it's not going to be the level of success where like the classic WoW release, for example, surprised Blizzard with how successful it was. It was sort of like, oh, this is a real thing. And I'm not saying that it would be impossible for Diablo 2's re-release to surprise them as well, but it will not be as profitable because there's not subs associated to it the same way. If they move microtransactions into it, it's going to have pain associated with it, like real pain. They cannot take the hit of putting microtransactions seriously in it right now, considering they're already taking the hit from this. They're not going to be able to monetize that the same way. And it's also a loot grinder in an era where people are really kind of tired of grinding. Like grinding is turned into a dirty word because grinding has been made so terrible by microtransactions existing. Like gaming companies or mobile companies specifically have gone ahead and made grinding worse than it used to be, because grinding used to be this thing where we would go, sorry guys, trying to get my pen here, where it would be like you grind and you get gradual improvement like that, and that's fine, and it turned into grinding goes like that. And this was tolerable and kind of fun, even somewhat mindless, but fun, and this is just painful, but it was made this so that people would spend money to make it look like this. And it sort of destroyed grinding and people's willingness, and the reality is Diablo 2 is a loot grinder. So we'll see. I know I've had one or two people say no, they're absolutely going to love it, they're sure that it's going to be just fine, etc. I'm skeptical on that one. Val says, if it's my company, I would pull out quickly too. I pay money not only for coverage, but to make my company look good. If I'm paying for it, I get to make the demands. So yes and no. Because here's the thing, Val. Like, That's true, but that's true if that's what the contract says. Like, and what the contract says is going to come down to who had how much power in the negotiations. Did you need the sponsor? Did you need the visibility from the sponsorship? Did you need the marketing more than they needed the money, or vice versa? And with how it goes, most of the time the culture right now is set. The understanding, the hey, how everyone else is doing it, sort of forces you into a position where the company that is doing providing the sponsorship, that is having the marketing done on their behalf, that is providing the sponsorship, is usually the one who can go, hey, we pull out if we don't like it, if you guys get bad publicity, etc. That is how most of them are set up right now, but that doesn't have to be how it's set up. You could absolutely set up contracts where that's not the case. You do not have an out, and in some ways that might be reasonable, because you might go, hey, the top rated show, let's say you're running a show, and your top rated show, maybe your top rated comedy show, is top rated because it's edgy, because it's saying things that maybe aren't appropriate, or it's comedy, that's how comedy works type thing. And no, if you're a comedy show, or if you're a show that gets its rating because it's edgy, you're not necessarily going to let people have an out clause to go, well, if you step in it, we want to be able to back out. No, you're going to take that risk right along with us, because you like that we're popular, and we're popular because we're edgy type thing. So, like, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think it's reasonable if companies set their contracts up that way, personally. That said, that's not how most of them are set up. Um, or how it actually happens is, okay, you can have this out clause, but if you're going to have this out clause, it's going to make us require that the level of the sponsorship in general is even higher. You're effectively paying to have this out clause, which is frequently how it works. Okay. YS says, same at Zax. I'll never uninstall, but my focus will be on DIIR soon. Okay. Seems like they got them to agree to say until the earnings call, so it wouldn't affect the share price too much. Could be. I wouldn't pull out. I would pull out if it makes sense financially. Of course, that's what everyone does. I mean, that's what you have to do when you're driving a company. Okay, but why don't they just pull their offices out of New York then, considering what came out about Cuomo? Cancel culture is hypocritical. I mean, cancel culture is generally hypocritical. Sure, that's a fair assessment, but there's a lot more costs is the real answer to pulling out of New York. And we also don't generally, like, there's not a, in the public's mind, there's not a link necessarily, like, Cuomo doesn't embody New York. Cuomo isn't like, well, Cuomo, and therefore this is New York, and therefore you shouldn't associate with New York at all. Like, why don't you, we don't have like a, well, you choose to live in New York, or you choose to live in, pick another state, we can do this, whatever, and therefore you're endorsing everything that that state does. We don't have that, and we also don't have that, like, that's not a thing that currently exists. And maybe you're saying it should, but that's not something that we're currently believe people should be responsible for. Like, it is a, what is the public's view of something, and therefore we view a company having a location in one of those states very similar, where we go, we sort of still believe this myth in some ways, that the state is more powerful than the company, so the company is just kind of stuck, etc. type thing, or, oh, well, moving would be too expensive and it's reasonable that they don't type thing. um Whereas we don't hold that for these ad agencies. We actually expect that, or not we necessarily, but portions of the public do expect that a company currently would pull out of an advertising deal, or they'd say, hey, even if you have to leave all the money on the table from that advertising deal, you should do it because it's bad for your name, etc. That is currently a belief. And you can say that that's hypocritical, but that's sort of the standard of where the public is, or where companies believe the public is. Companies don't do the best job of figuring out where the public is, because they don't really do the best job with their own survey data. And they bring in experts, and they oversample places like Twitter, and Twitter has what, like 8% of the population is on Twitter, and 2% of the population post on Twitter. It's something like that, and I'm talking American population there. Like, it's not useful, but it's an overrepresentation of things. So it's hard for them to really know unless they spend a lot of money doing their own market research. So you sort of get it. Okay, Val says if we assume half of the Coca-Cola customers are women, the company would look bad if they continued to support it. Um, sure, sure. They would look bad if they continued to support it. I think I got into this from a contract standpoint. I think I covered this already. Maybe Nestle's water division can sponsor Owl. Okay. You could say they look bad keeping offices in New York City too, is my point. Again, but the public's view on how much someone is expected to run for something, and people don't necessarily associate, the governor of something with, oh, the governor is the state, the same way a company is a company. Like, they don't do that currently. If you're going to abide by cancel culture, be consistent. I mean, I hear you, YS. I hear you, but like, meh. Defund Owl. Defund New York. Now they won't because that hurt them too much financially. I hear you. I hear you. I do get what you're saying, though, Wes. I understand your stance, and I'm not just generally, I am not a fan of cancel culture. But again, I can say I'm not a fan of cancel culture, but what definition are we going to use? Hmm. We've caught up on our super chat again from Sheldon Krieger for $5 saying Pepsi and Mountain Dew better than Coke anyways. Thank you once again for that super chat. Okay. Val says, and from Coca-Cola's point of view, they have other options for things to sponsor. Right. But again, it sort of to me becomes a question of should Coca-Cola, should State Farm be able to reclaim the money that they'd put? Let's say the sponsorship should last for another year. Should they get refunded the money that the sponsorship was supposed to last for the next year or not? And how should these generally be negotiated? Should these generally be negotiated where they can reclaim this if a company steps in it, or should they generally be where they can't? And I would say my view is that honestly, my view is probably that you shouldn't be able to refund this money because you are choosing to take a risk by associating with someone going, well, we want to associate with you while you're popular, but when you step in it, you don't type thing. Like I would generally say that doesn't make sense. That said, if you want to go, hey, we're going to pay a higher price to get one where we can, that's fine, but you're paying a higher price for it. And sort of that's what's happening right now, if these companies understand it. Drink of intellectuals. Okay. Okay. Wesper says, "Hey, I just got here. Do you think T-Mobile is going to split from them too?" I think they already did. But they'll never get rid of Bobby. Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. I mean, their earnings calls keep looking good is the thing. Like he did a lot of growth to the company, and as much as we don't like Activision, because most people don't really like Activision, and don't like what they did to Blizzard's culture, to how Blizzard makes games, the reality of this lawsuit is most of the evidence that we've seen as the public so far makes this look like it's an old Blizzard problem more than an Activision one. You can say, oh, but that it was allowed to continue to exist is a Bobby problem. Absolutely a fair take. But most of what we've seen does suggest that this is an old school Blizzard problem. And the shareholders are going to say Bobby's made them a lot of money. So we'll see. We'll see. Hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you. Yes, T-Mobile did split. Co-leaders can work really well. Look at Romulus and Remus just before the naming of Rome. Okay. ActiveBlitz stock has dropped from like 84 to 80 in the past week. Keep dropping so I can buy and resell when everyone forgets next year, please. Yeah. And that's a good trick, generally speaking. Again, if something like Overwatch League tanks, that would hurt their stock. So it sort of becomes the bad news is a stock hit, and then the bad news, you might go, oh, I'm going to buy the bad news because people will forget about the bad news. But if the bad news actually causes the value of a product that Activision owns, Overwatch League, to tank, then, well, oops, that to like actually stop working, etc., then the stock doesn't necessarily come back up the same way, or it doesn't come back up better than what you could have made from investing in other average return products. But yes, I understand what you're saying. Um, like when Exxon, for example, just a couple months ago got caught with one of their lobbyists just like saying, "Oh yeah, we own these senators, etc." That would be a good example of their stock lost 3%, and that's just like, well, the public thinks Exxon should lose value over that, but that's just a negative press hit. They didn't lose any value in anything, and that public press hit doesn't actually hurt them. That's the type of thing you buy on. Whereas this, I'd be a little more hesitant on, honestly, because this actually, the hit here actually hurts their advertising meaningfully, and these guys are an advertising platform, or they own a product that is an advertising platform, whereas that's not a problem for Exxon, for example. T-Mobile sponsorship pulling speedrun any percent glitchless, no profit loss. Okay, okay. The best time to buy was during the out of season April Fool's joke stuff. They were $45. 84 to 80 isn't worth mentioning. Random stuff causes variations far worse than that all the time. Fair enough. Uh, Val says, I would buy Blizzard shares just to say am shareholder. I demand more Mercy skins. Well, you can demand it, but it's not going to work. Does Google exclusive streaming rights end soon? I think someone said it was a 3 year, and what, we're 2 years into it, so they've probably got one more year onto that, if I'm not mistaken. I could easily be mistaken on that one. Everyone will forget this, and stock will go back up to 90 plus when Diablo 4 plus Overwatch 2 drop. Sure. If that's your sell window, but is that your sell window? Like, are you determined that's where you're going to sell, or are you going to keep holding? Because, sure, everyone will check out Overwatch 2 when it drops. Everyone will buy a copy of Overwatch 2, but how long are they going to play? And same thing with Diablo 4. Diablo 4's release will probably go better than Diablo 3's release did in terms of bugs, issues, etc. It might not be the best-selling game of all time like Diablo 3 was on release, but yeah, if that's your sell window, go for it. But do you want to hold past that? Like, I agree if you're going, hey, you're buying this small dip because you expect that, but it's not a very big dip. Misleading journalism? No way. I hear you, Sheldon. But again, I don't know if this is misleading or not because this article isn't written clearly enough for me to know. But I don't know from this article that Coca-Cola has pulled out. I don't actually know that, even though it looks like it says that. Do people still drink Coke? Yeah, people still drink Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola doesn't make all of its money in America, though. Like, Coca-Cola makes a lot of money overseas. And Coca-Cola still does a good job, I think, in like, you'll find Pepsi product has taken over a lot of restaurants, but Coca-Cola has done pretty well in like fast food, or like not just fast food, but what you might call just one half step above fast food type things, like the places that you'd stop when maybe you're on a road trip, like a Subway or something like that. And if you want to call that fast food, that's fine too. But like that tier of food, they've done a pretty good job of staying in. Um, okay. Plus, Coca-Cola owns a lot of things that aren't just Coca-Cola, just like Pepsi owns a lot of things that aren't just Pepsi. And I don't just mean sodas. We get into Gatorade, we get into Arizona iced tea, we get into all that stuff. Okay. Hmm. ActiveBliz results were actually better than expected, and they were feared to be bad like Take-Two's were. Yeah, their results were better than expected, which is why there's not a serious drop here. You buy Coke energy drinks pretty often? Okay. Water, flavored water, coconut water, teas, mixes, and energy drinks are the new cola, basically. And Coca-Cola does sell all of those, yes. And you guess Mountain Dew will always have some cult following? Sure, sure. Just like Doritos, It's Pepsi, right, but he's referring to like Mountain Dew, the cult following thing there. You can't even tell much of a difference between Pepsi Coke. Remember when that was all the rage? Like, oh, it's like the rage of the Coke versus Pepsi taste difference, or the McDonald's versus Burger King fries difference. Maybe I'm dating myself here, but that those were things. We just need some other scandal somewhere to make us forget about Blizzard stuff. That'll happen. You think YouTube had 3 years? Okay. I think the earliest we see Overwatch 2 is probably late next year. I would agree. I think early next year would be very hard to believe. Like a March of next year would be very hard to believe based on where they seemed to be in development. Late next year would probably be the earliest, and they're probably in a hurry to get that, but we'll see. It'll blow over by next spring. Probably. Probably. But what if. Well, in some ways it depends on how long it takes for the lawsuit to be settled, litigated, etc. Like, is this going to be, because it will, but then the results of the lawsuit will happen, and how long will that stick in the media cycle? But yeah, this probably doesn't stick in the media cycle that much longer. But that doesn't mean that you can go get these sponsors back immediately, especially if the lawsuit is still pending. And Overwatch League can't handle a very long time without sponsors. It's not doing that well. If something big doesn't happen before next spring, COD is in better shape because it's easier to watch for the casual gamer. Sure. Sure. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to catch up. Oh, sorry. I'm quite a bit behind. If you guys need to jump to the top, super chats are the way to do that. But otherwise, I'm getting through our chat as best we can here. Okay. It'd be a mistake to release Overwatch 2 anytime near that. Oh, they won't. D4, it's a good question when D4 is coming out. I don't know that we have a date on that, and I'm sure they will separate them. They'll probably separate them by a year. You can release your re-releases, like your Diablo 2, your classic World of Warcraft stuff. You can do all your re-release stuff, but they're going to do their main releases in different years, almost for sure. If you've never played Overwatch, you won't know what's happening watching high level play. Sure, but that's true of people that watch football too. Like they go, "What is this?" Or people that watch soccer too. And I don't mean the like hardcore fan, but if you like have like a family of four at a football game, one or two of them really know what's going on and the others really don't, but they're still enjoying the atmosphere. That's a same equation that can work for going to an Overwatch League stadium. Now maybe that stadium only sits 3,000 people or 7,000 people, but it's still an event, it's still a thing, it's still, oh hey, we went out and did something, and there's the roar of the crowd, and there's food and drinks that they can buy and all that stuff. Like you have to remember a football stadium, a baseball stadium, any of that isn't 100% filled to the brim with people that are like diehard listen to or watch every game people. At Blah, no confirmed date, speculated 2020, which means Overwatch League would be later. Does Owl going away mean Samito would be unemployed? Who knows? Who knows? Riot Games got sued for treating female staff unfairly in 2018. They recovered now. Yeah, that's true. That's true. 2023, not 2022. Okay. Yeah, Overwatch is a really weird experience to watch with no idea what it is. Sure, but I think the same would probably be true of, like, a lot of you guys might understand sports, but I actually suspect a lot of you guys who are watching wouldn't really understand or don't seriously understand some of the sports that I just referenced here. Like, if you put a game of cricket in front of me, I'm going to be pretty lost into what's going on. I know most of the mainstream sports in the US pretty well, but even that is like, okay, we could go through soccer and you could definitely lose me on some of the rule stuff in soccer. So, like, I think that's true for everything. But that still works. You can put people who aren't, super fans in a stadium with someone else who brought them who perhaps was a super fan, or like you have a group of friends that go because one of them really likes it and the others know it well enough that they're going to go and still have a good time type thing. James Daly says, I'm surprised fighting games haven't gone bigger in esports. They're so easy to watch compared to every other game. I can watch two people play a fighting game, and I've never played and understand it. Yeah, but I think the problem with fighting games that actually this Overwatch sort of does a good job of masking is fighting games, it's very obvious that you're not good at them. People like to tell themselves they're better at games than they are, and it's much easier to mask that in games with more players on the board that aren't one-on-ones. So like I actually think that hurts the popularity of fighting games. I think online competition sort of hurt the popularity of fighting games too, because it's no longer, oh, this kid is the best in their town, they're the, they win at the birthday parties they go to, etc. We opened up the world and most people realized they weren't as good as they thought, and they don't like it. It hurt their ego. They don't like it, and I think it's actually generally hurt the popularity of fighting games. Um, yeah, this will blow over once the lawsuit is resolved, but that could take a while. And it'll even blow over in the meantime between when, like, it could be the lawsuit will get settled quickly, I suppose. But what's more likely to happen is lawsuit causes problems for them now. Things go down here. They creep their way back up over time, maybe even pretty quickly, and then a lawsuit happens again because it actually gets resolved, and that's a bad press event, and things go back up. And this is not me modeling the stock price. This is, me modeling perhaps the general sentiment, the feel, etc. about them, and then it goes back up over time. But if you're Coca-Cola, State Farm, T-Mobile, do you want to get back involved in this time frame when you clearly are aware that this event is likely to happen at some point in the future? Not really. Not really. And that's a problem specifically for Overwatch League. That's not a problem for Activision Blizzard overall, but that's specifically a problem for Overwatch League because Overwatch League is fragile. Like Overwatch League it doesn't have 10 years left. Does it have 2 years left? Does it have 4 years left? Does it have 1 year left? If it has 10 years left, it's because Overwatch League 2 is a smashing success. Is Overwatch League 2 going to be a smashing success? I don't know. The future of the league is more strongly tied to the success of Overwatch 2. The future of the league is more strongly. Agreed, for sure. The success of Overwatch 2 has way more to do with the success of the league than this does. 100%. It's exactly that, a short term hit. Agreeing. It'll still suffer the same problem of being difficult to watch for the casual gamer. It will, but that is not as big of a problem as I think people think it is. Though it is still definitely a problem. Like, it is much easier to watch Call of Duty than it is Overwatch League. Devoting all the resources to Overwatch 2 was a mistake. The game got stale. Big effect on the League 2. Sort of. The problem is, like, devoting all the resources to Overwatch League 2 might have been fine if they'd actually devoted all the resources to Overwatch League 2. It is incredibly obvious that they pulled resources from Overwatch League, or not from Overwatch League, from Overwatch, the original game, and pretended to move them to Overwatch 2, but hadn't actually really started on Overwatch 2 for a while there. Like, that's incredibly obvious. Or they'd started, but it's like, okay, we're putting a team the third of the size of the team that we're actually going to use when we get serious about this into working on it. And that just doesn't work in video game production. Like, we've seen that before. You saw that when Squaresoft took forever between Final Fantasy games. They redid, which Final Fantasy game was it that they like redid across multiple generations multiple times? Was that 13? 15, whichever one it was that had huge delays, etc., because the world evolves too much. The computing world evolves too much in that time. You have to, like, you can't have an 8-year development cycle for a game. Star Wars The Old Republic ran into the same issue. You can't do that. It doesn't work because your original stuff is worthless if you're taking that long because your engines are changing, everything. Anyway. You're dreaming. So Fat Too Slow says, kind of hoping Blizzard gets picked up by a different company and Activision drops out of the gaming industry. I mean, you can hope, but it's never going to happen. I mean, it's not never going to happen. Like, it's possible that it would be something where it's like, oh, Activision is a dying company at some point in the future and someone is willing to buy, well, they're specifically wanting to buy the Blizzard rights because they like that nest of things. But that's like you buy it in bankruptcy or to avoid bankruptcy type thing. Activision would have to be in way, way worse shape than they are for that to happen. And then you could hope that they had a revival like Marvel had a revival after Disney bought them. That's sort of what you're hoping for there. And maybe, but that would be quite a ways away. I thought one of the guys working for Al was a chairman for Coca-Cola. Could be. Could be. I don't know that. Okay, Crunch says, I absolutely adore competitive Pokemon stuff because I just never understand what's going on and therefore I love watching it. I can never predict what's going to happen. Okay, okay. If Overwatch 2 is a bust, Al was just gone. Agreed. You can't follow Pokemon? That's odd. I guess you're just unfamiliar with it. I mean, doubles is more complicated than singles. He could be talking about that. Val says, I think Temporal would be really good at coaching MOBA. Yeah, yeah. I could coach MOBA. He probably would. Let's get him into Dota 2 and Dota Auto Chess. We could. It might make more sense to like pick the next one when it gets big. Like I would be really behind getting into a Dota 2 or a League or something like that. Compared like jumping into that this many years, decade behind would really be like there's a lot of catching up to do. I could do it quickly, but it might make more sense to jump on something new and sort of be at the cutting edge a little bit more there. What do I think will be the future of Overwatch esports if League dies? If the League dies, you don't mean League of Legends. Collegiate. Collegiate is the only future it would have. Collegiate is the only future that Overwatch esports would have if Overwatch League dies. You might see, it's been released and you get something resembling the original scene of like monthly mealies, things like that, with prize pools of like $1,000 to $5,000. You might see something like that show back up, and maybe slowly that builds over time and grows and it works, etc. But it would be a real hit. And there wouldn't be as much interest in doing that now as there was back then because Overwatch is an older game type thing that there's less belief that you're going to get eyeballs on it, all that. It would be bad. Collegiate would be the real future if it had one. Let's take a quick look here. Why not Heroes of the Storm? Well, Heroes of the Storm, I mean, Blizzard has basically already pulled the plug on Heroes of the Storm. They completely got rid of the collegiate TESPA stuff they did with that. Like, they're done with that being a competitive game. Supposedly, OWL is much more popular in China, so maybe China would be the focus. Could be. Could be. Wait, is he reading chat? I'm absolutely reading chat. But yes, I'm reading from top to bottom. And I do that in these videos, guys. Like, I go through the thing. If you're like, hey, I don't care about chat, I care about what the article said, and I care about Temporal's reactions to the article, your best bet to that is rewind the video and watch the beginning part. But then I get to chat, and then usually after catching up on chat, I'll check out comments from there. But usually you guys are more interesting than the comments we see. Okay, to be honest, the balance of the game hasn't bothered me. I was upset that they hyped everyone up with all of this lore and then drip fed it for 5 years. I still miss the cinematics. Yeah, the cinematics were good. The cinematics were good. And there was hope that they would do more in terms of like a series than they did. I mean, licenses or rights to potentially do those things did get that was teased, things potentially happening there, but I don't remember anything happening. Did something happen? Maybe they made a kids show and I'm just not aware of it. I don't know. Team Fortress 2 has been in mediocre balance state with no content and is still somehow saying decently strong, which concerns me. That's the type of thing I'm referring to. I wouldn't have picked them as an example because I don't think it's quite strong enough as an example, but yeah. At Fat Too Slow, if you super chat, he will read you first. Yep. Part of what makes Overwatch so interesting is figuring out optimal play, and the theory of it hasn't changed in a long time. Sort of. Like, that's sort of true. The coaching and the theoretical understanding has gotten better over time, definitely. And some things have changed enough to break stuff. Like, dive was fundamentally a better way to play the game when lingering contest on objective and contest distance on objectives was stronger than it is now because you could anchor the objective more effectively without actually anchoring it. So there's been things like that that fundamentally change things. Or there were things like Goats where Goats was able to fundamentally ignore a rule of Overwatch, which was generally map control wins, by going, no, we're going to turtle objective control wins because of extreme amounts of peel and sustain. Like, that did actually change meaningfully how Overwatch was played because map control wasn't king. Uh, because you could just be like, nope, we're going to give you all the angles in the world. We're not actually going to give you all the angles in the world. We're going to still try to limit it somewhat with terrain. But, like, it was a situation where generally more angles wins, map control wins. But, like, Goats was like, nope, we can do it this way. So there's been some change. Of course, D2R isn't supposed to be as big as Overwatch. It's meant to bridge until, Diablo 2 Reborn isn't. It's meant to bridge until D4. Hey, Adam, ditch the scarf and start doing casino live streams where you put all your money on black. Oh, okay. Or else you'll never become cool. I'm so worried. I'm so worried about being cool, guys. They lost Coke. They lost Coke. Oh my God, this is big. Bobby Kotick is going to be very angry. I'm not convinced that they lost Coke based on this article. They might have lost Coke, but this is some of that. What are you doing with your article? Like, this says pull back, which is meant to lead us to believe that they actually left, but doesn't strictly say that. This is certainly supposed to make us believe that they left, but doesn't actually say this. And then the quotes we have from Coke is a spokesperson from Coca-Cola said Wednesday that the company is aware of the allegations surrounding Activision Blizzard and they've been monitoring the situation. And then we are working with our partners at Blizzard as we take steps back for a moment to revisit future plans and programs. We don't have any statement in here that says that Coke has actually pulled back, actually pulled their branding, actually paused their branding in any way. Like, they're reevaluating, but that could just be an internal reevaluation. We won't know until Friday if this article is BSing or not. Really, what this article is saying is Coca-Cola and State Farm were the only two sponsors on their list of 7 besides T-Mobile that we could get a statement from before publishing time. And their statement was very careful PR speak. State Farm, it looks like, is actually pulling back in some way. They're actually pulling back their branding. Maybe they're permanently out, maybe they're not, but, like, there's actually something real there. Coke, I don't know if that's real or not. And maybe someone's going to post, maybe someone already has, since I've said this, posted a comment in here saying what gives. When we refreshed earlier, that wasn't the case. And I'm not going to say what gives on stream here because it would take me too long to decide, okay, how exactly am I going to do this? And I didn't post a link to my live stream in here either, though I guess one of you could if you want. So it's unlikely that the author is going to end up in here and see this and answer my question either. But if someone wants to ask, go for it. Am interested in how this affects the Chinese broadcast where T-Mobile and Coke are less powerful companies. Reasonable question, sure. Also slightly unrelated, but with Overwatch 2, I want to see dual hero releases again. I think they said at some point early on that they weren't going to do it, but I just think they are cowards. Okay. Okay. Crunch says, for the topic of cancel culture, the image I would put is something like Twitter digging up a racial slur from someone 8 years ago and trying to end their career. This doesn't fit that kind of idea to me, but I'd love to hear everyone else's definitions of cancel culture because that's my own interpretation. Yeah, I'd be interested in other people's definitions as well because different people have different definitions for that phrase. And that's part of the issue in modern discourse on political topics like that, which is, okay, what are the definitions that people are using? Because they end up talking past each other because the bubbles don't interact, that have different views very often, and when they do, it's super heated immediately because they've been stirred up to be super heated immediately, and you're fighting over that. And some of that is a little more nefarious, where there's a little more people are intentionally working to change words, etc., to change the definitions of words. And I'm not hugely a fan of that. Like, words do have evolving definitions over time, but we do have some stuff where it's like, you, you you're making someone's statement not true by literally going and anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. Stan says, I like Bobby. Rome had co-rulers for 300 years. Okay. Is Al broken out in Blizzard's earnings? I'm not sure it'd be a blip on the radar if they dropped it. Right, right. This is not a problem for Activision. This is a problem for Overwatch League, guys. They'll point to D4 and restructuring and focusing on money making things, and the stock will go up. I agree, and none will remember that Overwatch League was a thing. Yeah, no, I completely am on the same page. Okay, Anton says, I've put like 500 hours into Overwatch over the past year. Please don't let Overwatch die because of sexual harassment. Okay. Blah says Boardwalk fries greater than Five Guy fries, greater than McDonald's fries, greater than Burger King fries. Okay, okay. Greater than Wet Play-Doh, greater than Wendy's fries, greater than Burger King fries. So you adjusted that a little bit. Okay. Oh, Crunch got something deleted by the Google moderators. Maybe we'll get to see what that was in the Discord. You guys can join the Discord in the description below if you want to see some of these comments that get deleted by the Google overlords there, because sometimes our chatters who are part of our community are willing to repost that there, and that could be good. Or he could have just tried to type the word Discord to tell someone that it exists, and apparently Google mods Automod doesn't like that and deletes it. Who knows? Anton says Wendy's and Burger King have okay fries. Crunch likes seeing people who are better than him at Pokemon. Okay. Oh, okay. Google deleted my message, but you said you're still very childish mentally in Pokemon and pick move teams based on how cool they look. Okay. Well, that is going to hurt your strategy. Yes. Yes. That was too much for Google. You said a bad word. Google's looking out for your own intelligence. They didn't like that you self-insulted yourself there. Very humbling experience. FF11 or 12. I don't think it was 11. 11 was the first of their MMOs. 11 and 14 have been the numbered Final Fantasy MMOs. I think it was 15. Yeah. Okay. FF15 was sure, so it took 10 years. Yeah, but yeah. Dota had an anime series quite recently. Oh, I think I did see that existed. Yeah. Okay, we're almost caught up on chat here. So if you guys have more things to say, you want to get that in there now. Otherwise, if you, if you have more things to say, get that in now. Otherwise, we'll bounce around and check out comments on the article and comments on Reddit, since the writer did link it on Reddit. Okay. I wish the bad things weren't so long ago. The people responsible have already left. I'm afraid this will lead to less resources to Overwatch 2 or even a too early release. Could be. I think the take is probably right that we're probably going to see Diablo 4 before Overwatch 2, though maybe not. Maybe that order will be switched, and those will probably release in different years. So we'll see. Antras Gaming says sexual harassment is terrible, but from mind-depressed Russian perspective, it feels like rich people in power can do whatever they want. Nothing you can really do except attacking their wallets. The world is depressing sometimes. Dota, Borderlands, etc. all had movies, Netflix shows. Yep. Hope Overwatch will suffer minimal damage from this situation. I mean, from my standpoint, as I am somewhat attached to the Overwatch IP, as most of my content is relating to it, yeah, I hope Overwatch does well as well. I think they should launch Overwatch 2 without new heroes and bring new heroes along later. The new heroes aren't as big a priority and can wait a few months. That would be a that they would get destroyed in the press. If they released Overwatch 2 without a bunch of new heroes, like if you release Overwatch 2 with less than 6 new heroes, and we should already have 6 new heroes in Overwatch if they just not pause development, if they release Overwatch 2 with less than 6 new heroes, and 6 may even be too few, there will be a huge backlash, and they will get a bunch of negative press articles like this about them for it. They would not like that. They will not release Overwatch 2 without a, a meaningful number of new heroes. It might not be the 20 that some people would like. It won't be, but they'll need 6, 8, something in like the 6, 8, 10 range of new heroes to not just get a huge negative press event that, again, Activision can handle, but would potentially hurt people going and checking out Overwatch and potentially hurts the value of the Blizzard brand. And the Blizzard brand has been bleeding a little for a while. It's not as powerful as it once was. And this is similar to what EA did, where they may actually run into a problem at some point. I'm not saying they're going to run into it now, similar to where EA did, where EA would have to keep acquiring new studios to be able to use the good name of that new studio, BioWare, whatever the new studio is, and as they water down the value of that name by sort of releasing not great products under it, they have to go acquire another studio with a good name and release stuff under that name, even if it's not really the studio doing it. It's possible that at some point Activision will have to go that direction as well. But for now, Blizzard's name is still probably okay, or will be after this, but I don't think it would be a good idea to release Overwatch 2 now without new heroes. I think that would be a terrible move. Again, you're only going to get really one shot for people to come check out your game again, one serious shot to really stick the landing, and that would not be it. We need new heroes for the hype, exactly. Definitely need 5 to 6 new heroes considering how long it's been. And Anton says, cancel culture is me not queuing with my friend because he's a Junkrat main. Is today the day to buy GME temporal or ATVI? Well, maybe. Okay. It means the game came out quicker. I would happily wait for the new heroes. They are lower priority than new heroes, maps, engine, and PvE. But you're wrong. Like, you might personally like that, but I can tell you from the success of the game standpoint, that is the wrong move. Like, I promise that is the wrong move. It is a situation where, there's the negative press event, but beyond the negative press event, the bigger deal is people are going to come back to check out your game when Overwatch 2 releases. They are. They've made enough changes, 5v5, new heroes, PvE, they've made enough changes, but you need to release a game that people want to check out right then. You can't release a 40% done, 60% done, and be like, no, over months we're going to add this stuff, because people aren't necessarily willing to come back and check out each individual one of those new things, or remember, or fighting with other games being released, like, you could come back and check out this single new hero that we've added here, or you could go play this new Amazon MMO that's been released. Well, which are you going to do? Well, you're going to go do this type thing, and you don't want to be in that situation when you're this. You need the big release packed full of enough content to make people really check it out, not this drip feed thing, at least initially. You can still continue to do a drip feed, which is what Overwatch was supposed to do, which is what modern gaming does, but you need a big enough event for people to come check out your game, because you only get one chance to get the maximum number of eyeballs on it like that, and most games get the maximum number of eyeballs and then they go down over time and they try to slow the decay. It's rare that a game gets eyeballs and then builds over time like this. You don't plan to be that game. James Daly, you need to watch the Lex Friedman podcast. That's an awful idea. Overwatch 2 can't release without multiple new heroes. Agreed. They could release one every month or something. Not the right way to do it. The new heroes will be so powerful you're throwing if you don't pick them. Quite possible. It will be 1 new support, 1 new tank, 8 new DPS. Also quite possible, but we hope not. Blah, please don't jinx us. I think Overwatch 2 will sell because for $20 you don't get 2 CP maps anymore. The ultimate microtransaction. For the price of 3 alts, you don't have a terrible game mode anymore. Okay, PvE is the big thing for Overwatch 2 because many players who left hated losing 50% or more of their games. Yes, PvE is a big deal for Overwatch 2, and giving people good memories of Overwatch 2 in the form of they went and played the PvE campaign and they enjoyed it, and therefore they like the concept of Overwatch, and now they can be good little Overwatch League viewers who go to stadiums and buy food and alcohol and things like that could be very good for Blizzard and for Overwatch. Like that could be a good thing because that's more of what happened with StarCraft. Most people's fond memories of StarCraft isn't from a ton of time playing regular StarCraft or Brood War on the StarCraft 2 ladder and really enjoying it. It's the PvE campaigns or the custom game modes that they did for fun. Those are where their good memories are, but they have good memories of StarCraft and they will tell you StarCraft is a good game. Overwatch is potentially going for the same thing with having a PvE mode. So we will see. And again, that could translate into money through the league. I don't see how PvE won't be boring. I'm worried about that myself. Hopefully, good plot, but that doesn't seem like the direction they're going. I mean, Bad at Launch is much more memorable than an amazing recovery. True. Take No Man's Sky, world's most disappointing launch, amazing comeback, but people don't associate that with it, only the awful launch. That's mostly true, but you can come up with a couple counterexamples. I'm blanking on an obvious one. I've got a buddy who played a ton of it, and it's sort of famous for being the one that came back over like 8 years or something. But I'm blanking on it. I'd have to look it up. Sorry. Block crushing the YouTube chat. Okay. Hopefully it says replayable as they're claiming it's going to be. I'm really too worried it's just going to be dailies for like a grind for, like dailies for a grind to get tokens to get something. I'm really concerned about that. Diablo 3 bad launch. They rebooted it. True, and they did recover fairly well on Diablo 3. Final Fantasy 14, yes, but that was truly awful. And like they did what most companies are afraid to do. They poured an insane amount of resource into going, it's all in. Like they went all in on we're fixing this. We refuse to let this game be bad. And they made it, but most companies do not go that hard. But yes, that is true. I have a few friends who would actually join me when PvE releases. Not my thing. It could be huge. Exactly. The level they showed in 2019 looked like I would only want to play it once, but the more recent stuff seems to have much more variety. We hope so. FF14 was epically bad at launch. I remember fighting squirrels at like level 20, and they're like squirrels that go up to your ankles, and it's like, wait, it's a level 50, I believe, level cap, and at level 20, you're fighting squirrels still? What? What? UI was terrible for controlling. Like every time you tried to cast a spell, you had to toggle whether you wanted it to be AoE or not. Oof, oof. Couldn't repair your gear above 50% without learning the professions. Oof. Rainbow Six Siege was a slow burn success, sure. Apex was kind of like that, got a lot better later on. But Apex had a pretty sizable launch, too. Like, we're not talking about your game, a game has a good launch and then gets better. We're talking about a game has a bad launch. Like, for most things, it's going to be the maximum is right here, and then you're slow bleeding out to other games. And you try to have that be a slow bleed out to other games. And you do other things, releases to slow down the rate to get little spikes of recovery, but you still slow bleed out to other games. Sure, sometimes you're able to build up over time, and that's fantastic, but you shouldn't expect that to be the case. You really shouldn't. Apex launch was great though because even nobody even knew it would be a thing, let alone a free thing. Yeah, and they used a new style of marketing. I mean, they went hard into buying Twitch streamers. They went hard into that in a way that companies really hadn't been doing before, and kind of kept it quiet, spent their whole marketing budget like that, and it worked well for them. It did. Okay. So that catches us up there. I'm going to go ahead and refresh both of these one more time to see where we are on comments. I'm not hopeful on the Washington Post article. It doesn't look like they deleted comments or disabled comments, which they sometimes do, but there aren't any comments on it. So the Washington Post readership just doesn't have much interest in this. I would be interested if we could get some sort of view count of this page, but it doesn't look like we can without going to other sources to potentially track that. So that's what it is. So let's go over to this, do a quick refresh, and see if we have any interesting comments. Posted 2 hours ago, 92 comments. We don't know how it did in terms of upvotes. Okay. He didn't post any text, just the link to it. Okay. If this is my career, I'm looking elsewhere right now, assuming the 2022 season isn't happening. I expect the 2022 season is happening. The three biggest sponsors pulled out. Do we know that by rank those were the three biggest sponsors? They could have been. Yeah, this guy has the better take. That's just not how it works. Exactly. Well, Owl could still go down, but it's going down because everyone or enough of them agree that it's over. There's, we're running at too much of a loss, that sort of thing, and we don't expect, or we're not running at a loss yet, but we have no belief that it's going to grow, and what we made this year is less than what we made last year. Like that can happen, but it's going to require. It's going to be a business decision. It's not going to be we don't need to over doom and gloom this. This is bad for Owl, don't get me wrong, but we don't need to over doom and gloom this. Their next season will happen. I would be surprised if it doesn't. Okay. Not looking good for Overwatch 2 League. For Overwatch, okay. Imagine if I'll shut down and OGN come back. Wouldn't happen. If Owl dies, I think Overwatch esports will survive, though the job loss and impact will be enormous for a lot of players and talents involved. Absolutely. Like, the losses would be enormous there because the top of the ecosystem would look worse, probably, than the current contenders ecosystem looks. That's not amazing. And you could say, well, collegiate would still look better than the current contenders ecosystem looks, and that's true. But that's sort of true. But collegiate isn't yet more competitive than tier 2. When the players in Owl that tried to hang on, some of them by going into what would be, third-party tournaments, the third-party tournaments again, you'd be looking at like $1,000 to $5,000 prize pools. It's in like you've got one of those every 2 months would be my guess. Like it's not enough to work. You have to believe that it's going to grow, and it might grow again, but like that would be a huge, huge step back. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is gone. Okay, terrible for the league. I suppose it's possible for sponsors to come back into the fold, and this is just a way to distance themselves from the mess for the moment. Sure, but again, they know that there's another event in the future because now they're paying attention to it of when the lawsuit gets resolved. Hmm. Okay. Washington Post. Washington Post hands their Reddit account around. So this is not like this is not. I mean, the guy who's watching this thread is the guy who wrote the article, but this Washington Post thing that exists that has 1.2 million post karma is used in general by Washington Post staff. That's fine. It's Washington Post. It's not though. Okay. Where do you think this all goes? Oh, why is Washington Post? He won't comment on that. That's too opinion piece, and he's trying to suggest that this isn't an opinion piece, which it's not. I just don't like how they did this, where we're not really getting a straight answer on Coca-Cola, but he's leading us to believe something. Is this a he? Yes, Teddy. Okay. So Coca-Cola, State Farm, and T-Mobile are pulling back from sponsoring the league. What does this mean? Because we did not get a clear definition of what pulling back is, especially for Coke. Uh-huh. Looking for anything more interesting, guys. With viewership not being too hot, and with all the scandals around Blizzard, it will be hard for Overwatch League to find new big sponsors next year. Finding new ones is actually probably easier than in some ways talking. No, that's not strictly true. I don't know about that. You can potentially still find new big sponsors. You just have to disclose that there's this event in the future, and you don't even have to disclose it because it's public knowledge that this is in the future. And if they didn't find it, that's on them type thing. It's not impossible to find new sponsors once things settle down from this event, but it is harder because people do know there's an event in the future. It's like when Riot had their mistreatment of female employees, lawsuit and some sponsors, I forget which, pulled out from LCS. LCS viewership has been in a decline, and the corporate sponsorship was really just using the chance to pull support. Could be, but I doubt it. Yeah. Was Alienware, not AT&T. Don't care. Nice knowing you, but Blizz did it to themselves. Nice knowing you, Owl. Yeah, Owl maybe, but not next year. Again, we're in potentially death spiral territory. We're not in this is the single thing that ends the league. It's not real. We've covered that well enough. It's not impossible to make a comeback, but a lot of things must happen. Overwatch 2, listening to the fans. Lost many fans because Blizzard was too stubborn with their ideas. No, people have different ideas. Don't overplay this. Oh, they're not listening to their fans thing. Like, let's not overplay this a little bit. They make mistakes, they make balanced decisions, they do things wrong, but fans ask for different things. Fans asking for specifically complaining on the Blizzard forum, dive is so annoying, we don't like Genji, we don't like Genji, we don't like Genji is what got us Brig and Goats. So like it's not all listening to fans is good, not listening to fans is bad. Like it's not all that. There's different groups of fans. There was the group of fans that even when Mercy was in her most powerful state, there was a large group of fans, I'm not saying the majority, but a large and vocal group that talked about how Mercy's terrible when she didn't have mass res, even when she was in her most powerful state of the entire game with the super Valk, 18 seconds, double res, like it was, no, listening to the fans isn't necessarily the answer. Listening to the right fans could be, but that's harder to find. After all the doom and gloom since year one, this is what could take out Overwatch League. It's a shame because I like Overwatch esportism. I'm not sure that's a word. Again, contribute to the spiral. I don't think it's a single event that's doing it here. Half-hour long cheese and Pringle commercials. That's not how it works unless you talk them into buying more ad time. Okay, nothing terribly interesting there. I'll come back to chat here. I don't think there's anything too interesting that we're missing in this chat here. Again, if you guys are liking this, please do like and subscribe. That helps out quite a bit, and I really do appreciate it. If you're looking to get coaching, you can join my Discord in the description below, or if you want to know when we're talking about these types of things so you can be here to ask questions, to make comments, to share your opinions, in the Discord, you can go to the Get Notifications channel, react to become a watcher, and then you'll get pings when we go live so you can see the topic that we're covering. You can see the video and go, yeah, I care about this one, or yeah, I care about this one, but I don't have time and I want to watch it later, or I want to be here now so I can comment. All that good stuff. Okay. Okay. Poor Teddy, all that work and no viewers. No comments. I think part of the reason for that is the comments. Like, he probably did get some viewership for this, but he probably got some viewership for this on places that he posted it, and places that he posted it are then going to comment. That said, I don't know how successful it was. Like, Overwatch, we're looking at the competitive Overwatch subreddit, 278,000 members, 2K online right now. That's not huge in the online world, and we don't know how many views this got directly, but like it didn't get any comments. I don't think they have an esports tab that I could jump to. It's certainly not going to be above the fold if we went to Washington Post's homepage. So like, eh, but they're trying, and it's nice to see some of the traditional media outlets trying in this, because I think the traditional media outlets like Washington Post did a better job with some of the video game news when they started to get into it. Not necessarily Washington Post specifically, but ones like it did a better job than places like Kotaku did. Like, if you guys remember how Kotaku covered some of the Genguri stuff, it was awful, or how they covered the second wind stuff, it was awful. And you did get better coverage that was more accurate in what it reported from places like Newsweek's esport division. So some of that more traditional media. Um, uh, Again, compared to like Kotaku or like The Verge, things like that, etc. Okay, there we go. Overwatch 2 should buy Battleborn since they could. They could. Battle Royales never really hit it for me. Similar boat, Semitic. They start with that as PvE, which would be awesome since Overwatch took out Battleborn when it launched. Battle Royales are great. You just need to learn where to stand for your top 5 and finish and then just AFK. Temporal is fine. He had credits. Any chance of Overwatch 2 popping off? He had credits. Any chance of Overwatch 2 popping off? I I don't know what you mean by that comment, Congex. Okay. Ty Nelden says, "Do you think that after Blizzard makes their cosmetic company changes, there will be companies that replace those sponsorships?" Potentially, but not in as large of a number. Like, you have to work hard to go get sponsorships this big. You're using your network, you're using your connections, you're using things like, oh, we have someone who, is here who also is on Coke Sport or whatever to go do this stuff. And it is, work to go find those. Like, losing them does hurt. I'm not saying that they can't, but, it might be a case of, okay, they have to lower the price of their sponsorships until they get bites type thing. Like, it's always effort. It does hurt, but I'm not saying they won't be able to get anything to replace them. And I suspect they will get something to replace them. I don't think this is a single, this is the end event, but it might be, again, the beginning, or the beginning may have been back in season 2, but a continuation of the have they passed the event horizon where it's now much more difficult to get out type thing. Temporal will just move on to reviewing food? Quite possible. Why do you think Golden Boy wants Why do you think Golden Boy went on to so much more success than everyone else who worked on it, Owl? Um, I mean, he went and covered stuff that wasn't. Oh shoot, he went and did some cable TV show, didn't he? Like, I forget what he went on to go do, but sorry, I don't remember well enough what he went on to do. But he went and did something with someone who was a pretty big deal, if memory serves. Um, Someone's gonna have to remind me what Golden Boy went on to go do. It's been a bit. And like, there's people who have done okay. There's people in the Overwatch world who can do just fine. Like, we still have Uber, who hangs out in the Overwatch world, who could do just fine in other places. Maybe not as much success as Golden Boy had, but if Uber wanted to make more money, there's ways for Uber to make more money. We had same things with our host of the Overwatch League in the first 2 seasons, could easily go elsewhere and did ultimately go elsewhere to make more money. But if he wanted to, he could find ways to make more money as a host, etc. Like, it's yeah. He'll become a life coach, maybe. Even Tiger Woods recovered from his sponsorship cancels. It's easy, well, sort of. Didn't necessarily recover from other things. Like, Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods isn't Tiger Woods anymore. If you like, he just doesn't play at that level anymore. When you're the very best at something, you can generally handle it. It's the things that are on the border that struggle. And Overwatch League was on the border. Overwatch League is not the NFL. Overwatch League is not. MLB. Overwatch is not the NBA, Overwatch League. So, like, again, the stuff that's at the top will survive. It's the stuff that's, fighting for its spot that struggles when this stuff happens. What does Overwatch need to do roughly to get the league out of this? Stick the landing on Overwatch 2. Stick the landing on Overwatch 2 is the real thing. And then if you could get back to this, no, we're actually going to do location based events, we're actually going to get people there, that would be good. It might be too late for that. But really stick the landing on Overwatch League 2 to give people good feelings about Overwatch in general, to then be able to actually make money off of, in serious ways, off of homestand events, and to actually turn it into a cultural thing of, like, college students, people in their 20s, people in their 30s all want to go to these events when they happen in the cities that they're there for, work for school for, etc. Like, that's how you want to be successful with this. And if they could get that lawsuit dealt with quickly, sooner rather than later, that would also help a little bit. Can Temporal teach me how to play Heroes of the Storm 2? Serious question. I mean, I would have to spend some more time studying it before I'd really want to teach it. Like, could I? Do I have the ability to teach you how to do it? Yes, but would I take you as a client right now to be like, okay, let's do a session on Heroes of the Storm? No. And am I likely to be talked into going and working on Heroes of the Storm? Not likely, because there's no future there. Like, that game is gone. Like, it exists, but that game is effectively gone, so it doesn't make sense for me to invest the time to learn it based on the rates that I could charge for it, or the viewership that I'd get for it. Just skim the forums and you will be happy that I don't listen to the general Overwatch audience, which is kind of sad, since unless you're a larger streamer pro player, it feels impossible to have any meaningful discussion that will be seen, but it's better than them actually listening to too many people in the forums. Right, but even the streamers, content creators, pros have their own biases, and or, like, the pros have their own biases that are heavily focused at the top of the ladder and heavily focused towards their own type of enjoyment of the game, which is not everyone's type of enjoyment of the game, but also focused towards the heroes that they specifically play. And content creators have their bias of, they do need to go for shock value in some ways, like similar to what Teddy did here, where he's going for, these guys pull back. I'm making it seem like they've definitely left. They've definitely canceled their sponsorships. Well, has Coca-Cola canceled their sponsorship? In the headline, he's a content creator. His content is writing for the Washington Post, but he's a content creator and he's going for the shock value. It's why YouTubers, even me sometimes, will go for more clickbaity thumbnails, and then they cleaned it up a bit in the article. I don't like this because I don't think he cleaned this up enough in the article. Like, if you're going to be clickbaity, you then should be straight with the people in the article, and I don't think he's done that here necessarily. But maybe I'm reading too much into it, but, like, that's a thing. So yeah, that's another bias where the content creators are potentially going for their shock value, and they want to say things controversial because it gets clicks, views, whatever. So that's not necessarily the best bias either. Nobody knew Ganguri was a girl until she played that game live, but it was reported everywhere as sexist gamers. Correct. Golden Boy did a series with The Rock. That was it. Love the honesty, Temporal. I don't remember what I said that was honest. That I sometimes do clickbait stuff? Like, I don't think you're reacting to that. Oh, you're probably reacting to my talking about Heroes of the Storm and why it doesn't really make sense? Maybe? Okay. I would never go to an OWL live game. That's fine, Blah. But Blah, we're probably a tiny bit older than their real target audience. Like, I think I have a feel for your age, where you are in life, etc. And you know, we're a little past who they're trying to get to those events. Yeah. Not wildly, but yeah. Okay. Brian H., I'm okay with Overwatch going down, to be honest. Blizzard has provided no content to excite the players. I stopped playing Overwatch because Apex, Path of Exile, Dota all get new updates with lots of content. Right, and that is sort of the modern thing. In the modern world, video games are expected to keep producing content, or on always online games are expected to keep producing content. You can get away with not doing it, especially if you're older, especially if your balance was really tight, your gameplay was really enticing, and your costs are a lot lower too, and you just accept that your interest is going to go down, but your costs are minimal. So it's a balance to be had. This sounds mean, but I imagine an L. Homestead would have the gamer's smell in the air, lol. Um, I went to the Contenders season 0 or season 1 back before Owl existed. I went to the playoffs there in the Owl in the win what became the Owl Studio, and it really wasn't too bad. Their menu was atrocious. They didn't have a liquor license. Their menu was atrocious in terms of the food. It's like, would you like a sandwich type thing, but your sandwich is like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich type thing. It's like their menu was atrocious for what it was. But other than that, it was okay. Like it did a pretty good job with the hype, a pretty good job with the setup. The smell was not too bad. It was not as bad as you can certainly get worse in places that might be like a convention center that's packed with people. Yeah, that I would say like the legends of Comic Con, certainly not that bad, though I haven't been to a Comic Con. Um, yeah, wasn't that bad, though I understand the concern. Plus, you can outfit that stuff because it is a studio like that. You can outfit it with air conditioners. You can outfit it with air conditioners with serious filters. There's things you can do. Um, But also, James, you're stereotyping there, which is, perhaps reasonable, but the people that are willing to leave their house to go to those events are probably going to fulfill that stereotype a little less than the people who are just going to watch online at all times. Just maybe. Just maybe. Okay. Uh, the leagues are neat in Path of Exile, but forcing less damage and more pain time leveling through the campaign yet again isn't the right direction. Yeah. Temporal's telling me to get off his lawn. Maybe. No, you're welcome on my lawn, blah. You're fun to chat with. Rank predictions? Nah. Temporal age and life status predictions? Okay. Uh, okay. Brian H says, I mean, I'm 25, so I've seen a lot of games come and go and really have no loyalty towards the game. The Overwatch audience seems to be a bit different since they are usually a bit younger. Um, It's also probably an audience that probably mained a game harder. There are people who like main a game pretty hard for like a year or 2 years at a time, and there are people who like play a game for a month, play the next game that comes out, play the next game that comes out, plays the next game that comes out. There are different types of gamer, and Brian, you might be, it's a spectrum, but you might be closer to this side of the spectrum than a lot of Blizzard fans are. Zemindex says, honestly, if there was a game that actually felt like Overwatch, I may have made the move, but right now the closest thing I know is Paladins, and it just doesn't feel anything like Overwatch. Okay. And then Val says, temporal cooking video. What? To want to cook to get advantage in video games. Okay. We're caught up, and I'm not seeing any more interesting content here. Again, if you guys are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe, as that helps out quite a bit, and I really do appreciate that. If someone is interested, you could take a link for this video and post it in this thread, as that probably would help viewership. But I'm not going to do that because self-promotion limitations, and obviously none of you have to do that. I'm not going to hold it against you or anything. But please do like and subscribe. If you have questions, you can throw them up now. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.